Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode, we are going to talk about the Circle of Dreams Druid. If you like what we do here, please like, share, subscribe. Please keep commenting. We love to hear about you guys and what you're doing with your characters and what concepts you guys are coming up with and what things you guys like or are interested in hearing our take on. This video is a suggestion by a good friend, Wild Mike. You might see him in the comment section. He is incredible to play with. He has a great concept of character. He has a wonderful way of building characters and strategically playing them out in game. He has a wealth of knowledge of lore and a great concept on spell knowledge, which is something that's very, very important, especially considering this class. So thank you for giving us a suggestion, and it was always great to hear from you. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the Circle of Dreams Druid. The Circle of Dreams Druid comes to us from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. It has this wonderful flavor text of being part of the Feywild and this dreamlike existence where it's full of colors and beauty and just mending the world around you and bringing joy out and this wonderful, colorful experience, and I hate it. It is just not my thing, not my scene, not how I think things are enjoyable. So that being said, this character class has a lot of things that are healing oriented. It is built that way. It just is what it is. So as far as strength and what you're going to be doing in game, again, this is one of those classes, subclasses, that is going to require you to know about your spells really well. If you're ever worried about if you're doing enough or you don't want to just sit there and be a healer, throw Entangle down. That's really all you need. That's almost an encounter ending spell. Don't sleep on it. And it's a level 1 spell, so you'll always be able to use it. That being said, this video came to us from a suggestion of one of our great friends, Wild Mike. We've actually played this kind of a character in a game, and he did something that I think is absolutely worth noting and a concept that I really wanted to address. Your character doesn't have to be bound to your class. Yeah, your class should be an influence into how your character does things or where their power comes from or how they interpret the world. But you build the character before they get those abilities, and that's an important concept. The character that our friend played was not a good character. He was more darkly aligned, and he played it off very well as being a creature of Fey and working for both the Fey courts, the Summer Court and the Glooming Court. And the Glooming Court is the Unseelie Court is the darker part of the Fae. Like those old stories of like those satyrs that would do evil things in the forest, and the Summer Court would be all the good guys and whatever. And he would deviate depending on which court he was working for. So it created this kind of battle-hardened character that had this great and beautiful coldness to him. And he was very, very scary because the morality blurred itself in concept to what had to be done. So it didn't matter if things lived or not. It didn't matter who had to survive or if his darker ambitions took over and he just raged out like a wild animal. What mattered was getting the job done and finding that balance afterward. So it was this beautiful cycle of doing what was necessary and then trying to find forgiveness afterwards that created this great character. But because he was so willing to do these unsettling things and dark, murderous things, it made them, just looking at him gave you this unnerving feeling that he was crazy. But that was our healer, you know what I mean? Like he played it off so well because he built the character concept and he didn't restrict himself by the class. Yeah, druids have a lot of healing spells, and this particular subclass is kind of built around healing. But don't forget who your character is, because understand healing is the most powerful ability in any game, because it mitigates damage, it brings people back from the dead, it keeps people going. Healing yourself when you're wounded makes you take so much more aggressive damage from your DMs that they almost focus on you. It's really the strongest taunt you have. Doing so makes you dangerous on the field. It makes you important on the field. How you act off the field and how you roleplay those things in game really dictates what your character is. So yeah, it's absolutely possible to be an evil healer. You can be a grave death or cleric and really fit those right on the nose, or you can be more subtle. and be more of that like Magneto kind of the bad guy, where you're a good guy but you have your ambitions and you're not willing to fold on certain things, and you will take extreme measures to get them, but you're still working with the good guys. And doing a character like that opens this up to be a more sinister kind of a hero, more darker kind of a hero, which I would prefer to play. Again, I don't like playing healers, and I try to avoid it like the plague, but if you were looking to play a healer and you were looking to do something dark and you didn't want to be a grave or death domain cleric, understand you can just be dark and still use healing to keep everyone else going, because you're all satisfying the same ambitions. When you tie your character's ambitions to what the story is, it's easier for you to be those darker characters and still follow those paths and still hold true to who your character is. I know that's kind of a tangent, but it's really important to note that the character concept does not have to be lost in the class. Like, yeah, you might be a fighter, you might be a bard, but that's not the only thing you are. You are whatever you were before you took that. That's a career move, you know what I mean? Like, that's like, I decided to be a bard doesn't mean I was like a bard when I was 6. There's still like an entire lengthy history that you can create that forges the personality before you picked up an instrument, or before you became part of the Fae, or really gave into the world of the being a druid. Understand those characters. That's what really builds this solid foundation to create a wonderful, memorable character that can break the rules and be something different. And that's something that was really, really enjoyable. I loved that character when I saw it, and it was an inspiration. So I was glad that he made this suggestion to do it. So we're going to jump right into the actual abilities. At 2nd level, you gain access to Balm of the Summercourt. This gives you a pool of d6s equal to your druid level. You can use these d6s to heal your party members. You can only use amounts of d6s equal to half of your druid level or lower. So you can use 1 per turn if you want, or you can use whatever the level half is. What's important to note is that whenever you use this ability, depending on how many d6s you choose to roll, you add that in temporary HP. So if you use 2 d6s, you add 2 temporary HP to whoever got healed. Understand that temporary HP in this kind of sense is a little bit of just damage mitigation, because you cut that right off the top of whatever damage is inflicted to whoever got the healing. It's a nice little buff. It works a lot like Healing Word. So if you're familiar with that spell, this should be right up your alley. This does have a few more benefits. A, the range is bigger because 120 feet is a large area to cover. And B, it doesn't consume a spell slot. You get this early on, and you kind of need it because early combat is very dangerous. You can lose a character very quickly, very easily in low level combat. It's a little bit of cat and mouse. I kind of really enjoy it, but it's very, very dangerous. But this is great because this helps mitigate that and gives you a nice berth of area that you can be within safe distance in order to heal somebody. And just one thing to note, that if you're ever down and unconscious and you get healed, you don't have to get up immediately. Sometimes it's better for you to wait for the enemy to get away from you and then get up. It's a little sneaky, but it benefits you, because if you get healed and then you pop up and you swing and you get dropped down as soon as you get put up, it's not as beneficial as maybe waiting for the enemy to move away and maybe pulling out a ranged attack and staying in for a few more attacks longer than you would normally. It's a tactical thing. Just give it some thought. Balm of the Summercourt is a healing ability. If you've ever seen a Celestial Warlock, they have a healing ability that's very similar to this. This kind of a healing is very, very beneficial because it's, again, a bonus action. You can be wild shaped and use this. It doesn't say that you need to do anything that's specific to casting a spell, because it's an actual ability, not like a spell that has verbal and somatic components that you need actual digits to turn into. So yeah, you can turn into a cat at higher levels, swipe a few times, and then throw this on. It's a great way to mitigate damage. It's a great healing ability. It's healing, so it's not as exciting for me personally as it is for other people. But as far as healing ability and healing powers go, this is one of the better ones, because you regain it after a long rest, and the higher HP, the higher level you get, the more of this you can use and mitigate and use for your own benefit. It can make a difference between surviving a fight and not. At 6th level, you gain access to Hearth of Moonlight and Shadow. The flavor text is a little bit long, so please bear with me. At home can be wherever you are. During a short or long rest, you can invoke the shadowy power of the Glooming Court to help guard your respite. At the start of your rest, you touch a point in space, and an invisible 30-foot radius sphere of magic appears, centered on that point. Total cover blocks the sphere. While within the sphere, you and your allies gain 5 to dexterity stealth and wisdom perception checks. Any light from open flames in the sphere isn't visible outside of it, and the sphere vanishes at the end of your rest or when you leave the sphere. This is a little bit of a situation where you really need to know your DM or talk about it. This is great when you're out in the world and you need to rest and you're in the wilderness and it's not necessarily safe. This is perfect for that because this gives you such an advantage to be undetected. But it doesn't say anything about enemies not being able to traverse it. If you have a DM that's willing to do something outside of the box, you might understand a scenario that I like to call the perfect ambush. Taking a rest in a dungeon or a cave or whatever it is that you might be involved in where there are enemies patrolling is a dangerous idea. DMs will warn against you and say you can try and, see what happens, but sometimes you're in a scenario where you just unfortunately got beaten down pretty hard. Maybe your rolls weren't that great. Or maybe you can set something up where you are taking a short rest or you decide to take a short rest, but you really do it in an ambitious manner. Say you're about to fight, you're close to a boss area or whatever, or there's a patrol coming and you decide to take a short rest. That +5 to stealth is going to be valuable because enemies can walk into the sphere. There's nothing saying that they can't. It is blocked by total cover, so obviously being behind a door is going to prevent it from leaking out, but you can wait and set an ambush with this ability. I know it's a little weird. Some DMs out there are just immediately going to say no, but if you can, because you decide when you take a short rest. It's one of those things where the party agrees the DM really can't do much about it. But if you set it up this way, specifically at an area where somebody's going to be coming through, or you're expecting something to come through, or like literally in a road where you're expecting travelers to come that you need to stop for whatever reason, or maybe you're ambushing bad guys that parade this area. You set it up and you wait for whatever caravan's going to come through, and then you jump the bad guys. Because they can't see you, you can't just literally sit there and just wait. It does increase your stealth. It is a big advantage, and it gives you a great big surprise round. Again, this is something you need to talk about a DM. It's a concept that I think about constantly whenever I read this. It's the only real way to set up an ambush in-game without using greater visibility, basically, on your whole party. So think about it. Maybe your DM will let you do it. It does, however, provide you the best benefit to take a short rest anywhere. It's a great way to keep your party going. It's a great way, especially if you have people that are short rest oriented, warlocks, fighters, even wizards when they haven't used all their spells yet, and they use a couple of them, is a great way to get that back. And other characters that have things to benefit themselves, like maybe bards with bardic inspiration if they're really doling it out, or they're using a class like College of Whispers where they might burn through them, or College of Swords where they might be using blade flourishes. That being said, again, it's one of those things where you can talk about with your DM and try and use it offensively, and talk about it with your party, because having a surprise round is a very hard thing to get, and a lot of classes gain a lot of benefits from being able to go first. At 10th level, you gain access to hidden paths. You can use the hidden magical pathways that some Fae use to traverse the space in the blink of an eye. As a bonus action on your turn, you can teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Alternatively, you can use your action to teleport one willing creature you touch up to 30 feet away to an unoccupied space you can see. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. This is incredible. This is basically a free Misty Step that you can use depending on how many your wisdom modifier. So max, you're rocking out at probably 5. But you can teleport someone else. That is what's really important. someone's in danger, someone's behind enemy lines, maybe you teleport in, survive a round, or put up a blockade, maybe use Pillars of Earth or something, and you just shield up, teleport your friend out, and then bounce back afterwards. It's a big expenditure, but it does give you that availability. Maybe you're sneaking in somewhere, which is going to be important later on. But you can use this to get into an area that you can see, and that is a big distance, 60 feet. And understand, it does not say you need to be in your regular form to cast it. It does not mean you need verbal or somatic components, so using this in wild shape, very plausible. And that's important because there's something that's coming up next that is really, really important that I think is a lot of fun you might need to understand. So, in combat, Misty Step, valuable. Just being able to bounce back and forth and use some of your ranged cantrips is great. It's fantastic. It's a great way to keep yourself going and keep yourself out of danger. You might be able to use this with Thorn Whip and move characters around that wouldn't be able to get around to certain areas. Maybe you threw down Spike Growth and you wanted to teleport to the other side, drag something back, and then run out of the distance, and then run around the whole way and keep them running, chasing you and kiting them in Spike Growth, adding up that damage. Concepts are out there. Being tactical with this kind of ability is great, but don't neglect the role-playing ability for it. It doesn't cost anything. God forbid you ever find yourself in prison, you're out. You know, like, you can do a lot, and it's very important to understand this fluidity that you have now with movement because of this. So you can go anywhere. You can do a lot with this ability. The more creative you are, the more dangerous it is, and the more your DM will dislike it, but don't try and get on their nerves too much. At 14th level, you get access to the final ability of the Circle of Dreams Druid, Walker in Dreams. The magic of the Feywild grants you the ability to travel mentally or physically through dreamlands. When you finish a short rest, you can cast one of the following spells without expending a spell slot or requiring material components. You can cast Dream, Scrying, or Teleportation Circle. This use of Teleportation Circle is special. Rather than opening a portal to a permanent teleportation circle, it opens a portal to the last location where you finish a long rest on the current plane of existence. If you haven't taken a long rest on the current plane of existence, the spell fails but isn't wasted. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. It's a little confusing that you can only do this once per long rest, but only after you finish a short rest. Don't know why that is, but I guess resting is an integral part to this. Now, you don't get access to Dream normally. This is the most important thing I want to talk to you about with the Dream spell. In this situation, you are the messenger no matter what. And that's important because the way the Dream spell works is normally you don't have to be the messenger. You can create something to speak to the character that you're invading their dream of. Now, if you have a lock of hair, a piece of fingernail, or whatever of the target, you can force them to make a wisdom saving throw, and if they fail, they don't gain any benefit to the rest that they take. And it only happens when they wake up and they take some psychic damage. Opportunity. This is a great way to do something absolutely devastating. Now, we mentioned before the ability with hidden paths where you can teleport. And you can do it while you are shapeshift. Because it doesn't say anything not to, so we can play a little bit around with that. Now, if you're in an area at level 14 where maybe there are nobles or something, or just a scenario that you're dealing with that's very problematic, if they don't gain the benefits of a long rest, they gain a level of exhaustion. Now, no matter what character there is in the game, they have to get up and work and do their daily activities in order to survive, whatever it is, even if they're bad guys or not. They can't just go, oh, I didn't sleep 8 hours last night, let me just go back to bed. Like, you wake up with this exhaustion and you have to deal with the rest of your lives. This is a great way to be a horrible person. So take note. Meet a noble. Be a little unusual when you do and say your customs are not from this land, and then offer to kiss the ring. In the event that you do, and they do allow you to do so, bite off a piece of the fingernail. Just do it. And just apologize and say that was your custom and that you meant no harm. And that you can rectify that and heal it. And no harm will be done. Pray that it works. Or turn into like a cat and sneak into their place using hidden step and cut off a piece of their hair. And torment them in their dreams. Make a dream out to them where you're asking them for help. And then make yourself this horrible monster. Or maybe you're agreeing to do what they wanted and make yourself out to be this horrible monster. Yes, it will be you, but you didn't do these things, and you healed people. Maybe that's part of your cover, but you can make these bizarre requests and then just, or tell him that they have to help you and cause this nightmare to happen. After 5 days, on the 5th day, they will flat out die, because if you reach 5 levels of exhaustion, you die, and you cannot gain the benefits of a long rest because you are repeatedly using this spell. You have to finish a long rest in order to be able to do it, so you can take a long rest right before you go to bed. It's so wonderfully set up for you to be able to do these tormenting things to people, to people that aren't working your favor. Say you're going to be in town a few days and you need a specific amount of magic items, but the seller won't give it to you. Maybe you turn into a little bit of a bat or something, fly in, chew off a piece of its hair, and run off. Feasible. Not breaking any rules. It's all there for you to do. And then as soon as that morning happens, you run immediately to the shop, which will remain closed because the character who runs it is dead. And then you take whatever it is you need and go off into your world. Dream gives you this wonderful availability to really cause a lot of damage in game, because anyone that's not like a monster that you're fighting that's a high level boss character doesn't have legendary resistance, and they're making the save with disadvantage because you have a piece of their clothing or skin or whatever it is. And that's what makes this deadly. It is fun. It is cool. It is one of those abilities that I can't be ever allowed to gain access to because of what I would do with it. But understand that what you can do with it and what control you have in mitigating certain things, and how great it is when you hit an NPC with it, where you bargain with them that this won't end until you help me, and then they're suffering, and then this lord or king shows up at your door throwing whatever it is you need to succeed or get into an area, and you have that. And you fought for it in an evil manner, and it feels good. Our final thoughts on the Circle of Dreams Druid. It gives you a lot of availability to heal and protect your party. Hearth of Moonlight and Shadow is a great way to stay safe in dangerous areas, and if your DM will let you set up an ambush, which is practically impossible to do, but with this ability I think it gives you a chance. The ability to cast dreams is awesome. Again, I went in depth and probably a little too long on what you can do with that, but that's a very cool ability. And with hidden paths and wild shape, you have this awesome way to get what you need to make it viable and to really twist people into doing what you want. The healing ability is there. The Balm of the Summercourt gives you the ability to be almost an MMO healer, where you can just every round just throw out some healing and some temp HP, and it makes a difference. It really does. Again, the druid is a full caster, so if you're worried about damage, if you're worried about doing anything else, you have the spells available to do so. Most of these things are bonus actions that are not spells, so they will not hinder that. And in D&D, the best defense is a strong offense, so killing things quickly will mitigate the damage you take and will mitigate the healing that is needed. That being said, it is fun to be a druid no matter what. And the availability to use these abilities and to be able to walk a different path with them and be a little bit creative is a great new concept. This gives you a valuable opportunity to be more creative with your character and more creative with your abilities. There's very few things that gives you the ability to teleport other characters. There's very few things that give you the availability to teleport entire party members to a long rest location that you took. And the ability to hide them and keep them safe and keep them going is valuable. You can almost set this up as a leader kind of a character. And if you did want to keep with the Sinister Heroes mentality, you can again do what my good friend Wild Mike did and create your character before creating the class and really melding that darkness into it, and that way you can still be this darker character and still be able to heal and rejoice in the abilities that the Fae has gifted you. That being said, if you made it this far into the video, please like, share, subscribe, keep commenting. We love to hear what you're doing, and thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.